Hi, Misha here, and this came in the store recently. It's a bit of an unassuming gun. Yes, it's a Makarov PM, or at least inspired by. This is actually a Russian commercial IJ70-18A, meaning it's the standard cap version for a military 8-round mag, meaning it fires 9x18 Makarov, 9mm PM, and the A meaning adjustable sight. Like I said, pretty standard. It has the modern, at least by 1990 standards, kind of grips. And I don't know, haven't shot Makarovs in a while. Anyone who follows the channel knows that J-Ro, not so much a fan. However, I asked Fox, have you ever shot one? He said no. So I thought, let's bring a couple out, see what he thinks of this gun. Will he end up kind of siding with me or J-Ro? We'll find out. I'll put the first mag through it and then hand it over to him. And as always, if you could, please like, share, and subscribe. It's a beautiful Labor Day, for what it's worth. And if you'd like to really help support us, get some more Makarov ammo, check us out on Patreon. So with no further ado, let's light it up. Makarov first shot. Held open. Here at the table with the IJ70. This was one of the first Makarovs, PMs, to be available in the USA. And it was commercial, made in the Russian Federation, post-Soviet Union. These started coming in around 1992. Most were KBI, but this one's actually Century Arms. And because they were considered modern guns, they had to comply with the 1968 Gun Control Act. So they had the points system, and their methodology was this adjustable sight. And as I pointed out, they have these type of grips. And mine here is chambered for 9x18 Makarov. This is one of the bullets we were just using. 95 grain. This is the FMJ. Typical. The IJ70-17 was the same gun, but in 380. And this is a beefier bullet than 380. For one, it's 9x17 for 380, 9x18 for Makarov. But really the bullet, 380 is pretty much 9mm dead on. This is actually 9.25mm, so it's just a wider bullet in general. It was designed for close range self-defense, but also, of course, yeah, just to be a blowback gun. Simple, no locked breech going on, steel, what have you. But they were dependable, affordable, and one of the first of its type we ever really saw. In fact, the only other one I can think of available en masse back then, and these came in smaller numbers, was the Chinese Norinco branded Type 59 here. And while some of these were repurposed military guns, they were officially classified as commercial, and therefore they had to have their points too. And for those, they gave these the thumb rest target grip versus the adjustable rear sight. Pros and cons to both. Complying with rules. The whole point of the 1968, it was to prevent quote-unquote Saturday night specials, cheap foreign guns, because there really were a lot of just, dime store guns coming in from Europe and elsewhere back in the 50s, and yeah. So these were the early Makarovs, Chinese, and the Russians were more common. The Russians were mostly blued, but you could find some that were nickeled or even chromed from the factory. And I've even seen a couple with a threaded barrel. And the only difference between a 380 and a 9x18 is the barrel. Although since the barrel is pinned into the frame, it takes a little bit of doing to remove it and replace it. But they use the same magazines and all that. Just wanted to give that little caveat. Show these guns. So with that, let's hand her over to Fox. Fox's first time with a Makarov.
Manly charge. Hit target. That was the last shot. All right.
All right, so first time you're holding one and first time you're shooting one. First impressions?
It's kind of uncomfortable. I think it's maybe the grip and the way my hand fits in there. I may need to kind of discover that a little more. But it's a little snippy, but not terrible. Stiff to charge. Wasn't really a pleasurable experience. I couldn't see myself putting 100 rounds through this. But it was accurate.
Yeah, your first shot.
I don't mind the iron sights, but I did have to readjust my hand twice, I think, because it was starting to slip. I'm not a big fan of these thick, old school, plasticky grips.
Well, luckily, I brought a very similar Russian Makarov, but with different grips, so
that could...
Let's try that.
Cool.
Just as a control pistol, because I know this one works, I did bring out my actual Soviet-Russian era military. I think it's 1983 dated, so relatively early Afghanistan war. Obviously, this has the military grip, so we'll see how Fox likes these. And we'll talk about some other differences later on in the video. I'm going to put the first mag through it just to test it. That's kind of how I do. Then we'll hand it over to Fox and see if it's better, worse, or no different in his opinion. Military Makarov. Held open. Now Fox with the military. Alright, so what about the grips?
This one fit a lot more comfortable in my hand. This one did fit more comfortable. Seemed like the other one, kind of where the grooves are cut for your thumb to lay in, it's a little too sharp for me and pinches my hand. This fit way more comfortable, but was not near as accurate.
Yeah, I noticed you were...
Yeah, the iron sights on that one was a lot easier for my eyes to find. For some reason, these smaller flush-mounted ones, I couldn't quite get it. I was hitting a little low to the target. Not terrible, but not near as accurate. Yeah. So,
and that's considered target sights. These are military sights.
Correct. Yeah, this is going to be more for some close-up stuff. I mean, that is, 15, 20 yards out. But yeah, no, it was less snippy because my hand placement. But eager to jump back onto that other one and kind of see if it's a little more accurate.
Yeah, why don't you do that? All right, Fox back with the IJ70.
Yeah, I think I like the IJ70 a little more.
And you can swap the grips. They're just, like any other
grip.
grip.
For sure. Yeah, something about it seems snippy, but it could just be me warming up to the first handgun shots of the day, but I do like this one a little more.
So here we are with the military version. Fixed sights, standard grips. In general, they look similar. We've already talked about the target sights that needed to be installed versus the fixed. That's probably what jumps out at people first, along with the grips. But again, the grips, one screw, as I pointed out to Fox, and you can put these on this and vice versa. And Makarov grips, even today, are cheap, and back in the day were basically free. The fun thing about the 1968 Act, it's only for importation. It is 100% legal to put these grips on this gun, and if you could even replace this rear sight, that doesn't matter. The points are only relevant for importation itself. So it's not like 922R at all, which even it is a paper tiger, frankly. But yeah, so those are the big differences, but there are a few others between the original military and the commercial. Let's talk about that. Military Makarovs were made with the very earliest ones around 1949. Low rate production began in 51 and higher rate began by the late 50s. They were made by IJC mechanical plant. The commercial guns have one of two markings, either IMEZ, IMEZ, or Bakel, but they're both names used by the IJC mechanical factory, or later. Bakel was just an export name, kind of like Norinco, Polytech, and so you'll see IMEZ on these, but it's so they do come out of the same factory. But of course, production changed over time. Even with the military guns, you'll see different color grips, and for some reason the size and shape of the star changes. Also, I think I've noticed that the slide serrations slightly change, and the magazines change a bit too. Little just production updates, new tooling. In the 70s they started using more stamped components with the Kalashnikov. This has a machined slide stop. One thing you'll notice about later production Russian Makarovs is they have a stamped slide release. These also have more of a, I don't know if this is a true, it feels like phosphating on the frame and trigger guard, but it could just be a matte blue. Let me know what you think. Either way, it has more of a matte finish on the frame and trigger guard, still has a glossy slide, whereas the military guns have a more uniform, semi-polished blued finish. But again, the bluing will change from the 50s to the 60s, 70s, and 80s as well. So you will notice little alterations like that. But the truth is, the Makarov changed very little from the beginning to the end. And really, with the exception of the grips, the sights, this is a Russian gun. Now, these are not considered CNR because they weren't made in the Soviet Union. They were made in the Russian Federation. However, if you do locate a Russian or Soviet era one, these are considered CNR because the Soviet Union no longer exists. The only problem is these were rarely, if ever, usually never officially imported. The Chinese, they're technically not CNR as well, even if they're a military gun, for much the same reason. Typically, when you find the Chinese, they're actually in 380, not 9x18. So this is kind of rare, frankly. I got it off a friend a long time ago. Well, since pistols are small, I brought one more Makarov. We're doing the Russian thing. This is a gun I've had for a long time. The IJ70-18AH. So, same gun, except double stack magwell. Where did I put it? Which pocket? And brought a couple of mags out. This is the 12 rounder. Let's see how this holds up after 25 years of my ownership. Good. Alrighty. High cap mag. Held open. Alright, just a couple of rounds with Fox in the high cap.
Alright.
So, very similar, I know, but what about the slightly wider grips on that
I
one?
like it. I was able to control the recoil where it was going down lower for some reason. It seemed like on the other two, the recoil was more snippy up top in my wrist. Of course, I'm doing a standard, thumbs out pistol shooting, but this one was easier for my bigger hands to wrap around and truly control and put I feel proper hand placement. So
yeah. Both IJ70-18As, these are the same gun except for the added H for the high capper. Here's a standard 8-round mag used by all military types. Here is the expanded high cap. Notice they kept it as a single feed, even single stack at the very top to keep compatibility with slides and barrels. And just blowing it out down here. The slides are the same. Even the grips look very similar. These are just slightly wider to accommodate the wider mag well. Here's the standard mag well. And here is this one. So at a glance, especially if you're looking in a shelf, this, you know, side by side you might, but they about the same thickness, but there is one easy way to tell them apart. Looking at the IJ70 front strap, it is smooth. Looking at the AH, it's actually checkered. I think that plus the wider grip is why Fox was able to hang on more with this. What do you think? Still the same screw in the back though. It really is neat how they did 50% increase the capacity while really changing very little about the gun itself. One neat feature, I assume it was intended, it could just be because they were keeping compatibility with the upper the same. You can actually put a standard mag in a high cap mag, and the only kind of deterrent is you've got this kind of gap on the side where it can wiggle a little bit, but it still works fine. In fact, for a while they made replacement base places just for that. In fact, it even holds open. See? And releases just as it should. And no trouble getting it in and out. Like I said, it's just a little loose, but it's a Soviet era type gun. That's alright. And these actually insert quite easily too because of the skinny top, and then it tapers out, so they go in just fine. I don't know. It's a little side note, but it does work, believe it or not. Here's a box of the FMJ we've been shooting. You know me, I don't know which direction the riding is, so yep, worked fine. But always in a range trip, it's good if you can to bring different types, different brands of ammo, and the 9x18 Makarov is no exception. There might not be the selection like you'd find a 9mm, but there are a few brands and types available, and so let's continue on. Yeah, so that was all in that box. That's probably just a couple of rounds. But I did bring some hollow points, and hollow points can be interesting with military guns. So we're gonna try those. Why not?
Let's give it a whirl.
Fox is gonna try some hollow points in the IJ70 standard.
All right.
I would definitely say those sights like the military hardball ammo.
Yeah, they definitely did. I was shooting high for some reason. Even when I lowered it, I was still shooting high. I got one shot out of all those, so hollow points is shooting a little different.
But they did cycle.
They did cycle.
Thought I would try some hollow points in the IJ70. I've got a 10-round mag for this time. Let's see how this does. And shall it? One reason it's nice that standard mags will fit the high capper is because high cap mags, double stack mags, are quite uncommon to even rare. For one, these guns only came in from 92 through 95, and they were less common than the single stackers, and they take their own mag, only used by the Makarov PMM. And we have two styles here. This is the original style with 12-round capacity. This is the other alternative style with a 10-round capacity. And at first you would think, well, these are just made for the compliance with the assault weapons ban. That could be true, but to be fair, the vast majority of these came in before that, which was September 94. And they did allow for high cap mags made before that, so I'm sure these were over in Russia. The 10-rounder was maybe made for other reasons. And it's actually a different pattern. So I have to wonder if they went to these for more like reliability reasons. If you look at the body here, you see the welds come down in this piece. This is more of a single piece. Base plates are pretty similar, but internally they're also different. Take a look. They're a two-spring design with a follower. The original one here is metal, and the 10-rounder here is actually polymer. And then there's a middle piece that joins the small spring to the large spring, and it's a polymer material. But I noticed the large spring is different. The small springs look pretty similar to me, but this is a kind of a ovular, almost flattened square spring on the bottom here. Notice this piece here is short. That's where this rests in. This is longer, which explains the capacity differences, can't come down as much. But then this spring is perfectly round. So it's actually a different shaped spring here. So I don't know, and I've never really found out. I do know the 10-rounders are much easier to find, but even they're quite rare. The 12 you don't run across too often. I also know that there are some US-made copies or contract pieces, I think. I can't remember if they were Pro Mag or whatever, that don't work as well. But as you're seeing, these both work fine. I don't know. Internal, external base plate. They come apart. Again, here's the body for the 10-rounder. Here's the body for the 12. You might think you could just shorten this here to let this main follower go down, but actually there's a lip inside that this spring rests on. So if you did cut it down, you'd have to make a new lip, and I don't know how well that'd hold out with the spring pressure. I wouldn't risk it. These are at least $100 now. These are more. So either way, they work fine. 10, 12 rounds, or just get a VZ82. So with that, let's continue on with our range day. Now Fox again, he decided he wanted to try the high cap with the hollow point, and he's gonna go uno mano.
Back to 2, see if I can hit the target. I'm not sure if I could hit a barn with this.
You know what? Let's go back to, I've got one more box of ball ammo. Let's try that.
Okay.
I've read online that some claim the IJ70-18AH was kind of done in a hurry for commercial purposes, and the mags are a bit of an ad hoc thing. I'm not saying they're wrong, but I will say that we've had perfectly good reliability out of both styles, and they go together and come apart fine. I will say, putting it back together, the spring in the 12-rounder, the larger spring, seems a little bit stiffer than the one in the 10. That could be that it's just expected to grab more weight, or it could just be part of that reworking from kind of the square ovular shape to the round shape. I don't know. But, yeah. If you find one of these guns, just know that the mags are difficult to find, especially the 12-rounders. So pick them up if you find them. But don't stress out, because an 8 will work for you in a pinch, just looking a little weird. Yeah, I don't know. I've had this gun for a very long time. I was tickled to death when I walked into a store. You ever want something and it's not super expensive or anything, but you just can't find one? This is pre-internet era, early internet era, and you just didn't find the high cappers. And since these are connected to the Makarov PMM, this is about the most modern handgun we ever got out of Russia. Because, well, the first early Makarovs got shut down. The Chinese were part of a sanction applied in 1994 April because of trade stuff. And then the Russians went away not very long after because of a bilateral voluntary agreement where Russia, Clinton and Yeltsin together, but Russia decided not to sell military type guns over here, and this kind of got looped in. There was kind of a line of exceptions, but for a minute in the mid-90s, after these sold out of stock, you couldn't find Makarovs. And see, guys, this is why we have Fox around for accuracy stuff. We put the ball ammo, one you saw first, back in the high cap. Let's see how this goes for him.
I'm going to scoot up a couple of feet. I'm not sure what's going on here. Still just as ugly.
Let's go back to the standard IJ70. That's the one that, even though ironically it fits your hand the worst, you were very much the most accurate with. So like I said, after the mid-90s, Makarovs disappeared for a minute. But it wouldn't be long. And these were commercial guns, at least officially. So not CNR. But then the surplus started to hit. This is an East German example. East Germany is one of the few manufacturers of true Makarov PM pistols. Lots of guns are called Makarovs, but that's more for their caliber. They're chambered for 9mm PM, 9mm Makarov, 9x18. You get the drift. So it's not wrong, but it's like, 45 ACP versus 1911. It's just in Russia, when these were adopted, the cartridge and the pistol essentially got the same name for different categories. But no, East Germany was one of the few that would actually make this, and they would be one of the first to start building these. The bulk were built in the early 60s, 60, 61, 62, running through around 65 at the Ernst Thälmann factory. And they were a straight copy of Russian, except they have darker, basically black grips, no star on this side, and no star or lanyard staple on this side. And these are known for very nice, deep bluing, and just generally nice triggers on these. The East Germans are usually considered among the best, and even from the beginning, they sold for a bit more than the other surplus guns. But yeah, in the late 90s, the former Comblock states, Eastern European states, really guns started coming from them, Mosins and so on and so forth, which kind of started to fill the gap from Russia, which had been cut off. And it was a good time, and things were cheap. We considered these expensive when they were $300. And, of course, the alternative cheap example was Bulgaria. In fact, these are the only Makarovs still coming in today that I'm aware of. Bulgaria as a nation was the last to make these. They started production in 1975, although originally they would use Russian parts and even Russian supervision. It would take them a couple of years to fully switch over at the Factory 10, what we know today as Arsenal, to full production, but by the late 70s they were making them, and they produced them through the late 90s, even a few special runs after that. Unfortunately, these are not considered CNR because of that, being too new, and the fact that Bulgaria still exists as a nation. But the East Germans are CNR, partially because they're over 50 years old now, at least most of them, but more importantly because East Germany, the DDR, no longer exists. That's one of the criteria. The Bulgarian guns are an even more exact copy of Russian. They have the large star in the grip. And some say the bluing's not quite as nice, but they kind of vary. But they're nice. They're made by Arsenal. And they're a copy of a relatively late Russian style. Grip colors can be a few different things, and these are exported to a lot of other nations. Notice it doesn't have the adjustable sights or the thumb rest grip. Neither does the East German. What importers did, they just had a cheap thumb rest grip, essentially inspired by the, where did I put it? The Chinese here. And they would ship it with that, but they would usually even put the original grip in the box. If not, they would sell them for like $10. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the 68 thing, once here and owned, you could just do that. So these are unadulterated, except for, of course, import marks. But that was also required by 1968. Some are prettier than others. This is one of those Estonian ones that came in a few years back, complete with the service booklet, so we know what happened. And yeah, these were under $100 with holster and 2 mags and a leather lanyard and a cleaning rod. That's why I bought my first one. It was a Bulgarian, because why not? Even then, I mean, $100 was a little more back then, but it was still $100. So I bought one because why not? But then the Bulgarians disappeared for a minute, and when they came back, they had jumped in price to $200, $300, and today I believe they're over $400. Still a nice gun for the money, but actually the reason why is a gun we've already been shooting. The ATF, or Customs, started looking at batches of Bulgarians coming in, and they noticed that some were actually Russian. These started to be called sneak guns. Now, it wasn't all that intentional. It's just that early on, before they had production going in Bulgaria, they obtained guns from Russia, so those were in service. Also, Russia would give guns to friendly nations from time to time in the 80s for various purposes, so to kind of reinforce existing stocks. And so some Russian guns were marked as Bulgarian and came in with Bulgarian guns, and the ATF didn't like this. Some of it was the Russian agreement, but a lot of it was the paperwork just wasn't right. While commercial guns, sporting guns, get a pretty good exception of only a 5-year deal, for military guns, they're supposed to be in a foreign country for at least 50 years before they can be said to come from that country. That's how we start to see some SKSs that are technically Chinese, but they're coming out of places like Albania. They're legal, but they had to wait 50 years. Same thing with Makarovs, except these were definitely not 50 years old back in the early 21st century. Even now, this one's 83, so it still has a little bit of time to go. They didn't do a recall because it was kind of their bad to let them come in. They should have been doing their job too. But they did halt production and kind of change standards, and that's when the Bulgarians reappeared. And that's really how we got any even small number of Russian military Makarovs in the country in any type of legal sense. Not even gray. They're legal. There's a few bringbacks and guns that were snuck in besides, but even a few Vietnam with paperwork. Those go for crazy money, and even these bring more, but I luckily picked it up before that happened. So that's how these came in. And yeah, these are our true Makarovs. Alright, so we loaded up first. Well, we actually loaded up hollow point and then ball. So you're going to see ball first and then hollow point out of the standard IJ70.
See if we can hit the barn.
Have a barn?
I mean, I'm just calling it that, broadside of a barn. Smoked it right in the center there. Smoked it again in the center. And again. Moving on to HPs. Hit it again. You know, man, I'm not sure what happened.
I think that gun just fits you well. Now, to be fair, that has adjustable sights, so they could just be dialed in.
Yeah. Something about it, because that was perfect shot placement. I did shoot a little low to the left, but that's kind of a Fox deal.
Well, and also the grain weight and is a little different. But no, yeah, that gun seems to... I'm thinking if we put like a military grip on that, that'd be like your ideal one of these three.
For sure. And, you know, the more I shoot this, the more I'm getting used to its kind of snap and its character, and I'm warming up to it.
And the gun's warming up too.
I'm going to lick it.
Do it. Do it! Just do it! We went from sunny and nice to...
Good thing I got an umbrella.
Yeah! Big old drops and thunder. But it'll blow through quick. The getting hungry anyway. Although I did elect for Fox to go lock the gate this time. Normally I do, but yeah, we'll let him do it. Yep, coming down pretty good. So we're gonna go break for lunch, and I'm sure hopefully by the end of that we'll pick back up with our Labor Day shoot. You know, so far we haven't had any failures. Well, it started to rain, kind of ended our day. We were basically done, had exhausted all but one box of ammo. It was good. We had no jams, no trouble, boringly reliable. We will sit down with Fox, check in, see what he thinks. I just wanted to kind of line these all out real quick. These are the ones I own, and pretty much representative of all the nations that made them. Of course, this is a Russian sneak gun. It is pretty much the same as any other Russian, give or take a few minor differences. The East German, it's my shooter a bit. I like it. There are a few quote-unquote Germany-made examples from the 90s. So that is another nation that technically made them, but of course that's drawing upon East German technology tooling. And Bulgarians are by far the most common, but in no way inferior, especially when it comes to reliability or even accuracy compared to the others. It's just they're the most common. So I'm not doggy on them at all. Some of them are almost as well made as an East German or Russian. And again, I'm just talking cosmetically. They might be just slightly less, but not even by much. The commercials, the IJ70s, especially the single stackers, are still a good buy today. They are truly made in Russia. It's unfortunate they have altered rear sights and sometimes altered grips. Russia did make a fixed sight commercial IJ version, but extremely few are in America because they weren't approved for import, so they went elsewhere. And as we've kind of already seen, even though the adjustable sight for collectors isn't good, for shooters like Fox, they actually seem to help. These don't just seem to be crap sights put on for no purpose. They actually do seem to be letting Fox do better on the accuracy department. So at least it was a change that mattered. And again, grips, you can put whatever you want on. At least these do have a lanyard staple. The Chinese, I'd like to find a set of Chinese grips. It's funny that they basically just took a regular grip and kind of melted the top down and made a thumb rest. Still has a lanyard loop. These are very hard to find, at least in my experience, the Type 59s, especially the 9x18 versions. I just never saw the purpose of having a 380 version. This is meant for 9x18, plus 9x18 is more powerful and, frankly, a little bit cheaper than 380. 380 ammo has been expensive for a long time, so it's no easier to get. Of course, these made a lot more sense, 380s, 32s, 9mm max, before we got all these slim, compact, and relatively light 9mm and even 45s. But you gotta remember, guys, in the 90s, those guns didn't exist. Really, one of the very first of that class was the Walther PPS, and it was released at the end of 2007. So, if you needed a carry gun in, say, 1998, yeah, just go look. Your options were very different. And then finally, yeah, the high cap Russian. It's more rounds, but of course, if you have the 10-round mag, it's only 2 more. Is it really worth the added complication? And, well, I would say no, but then again, Fox likes the wider grip, so you do get a more comfy grip for some and more usable. And you do get 2 to 4 more rounds, but then again, you have to use pretty rare mags. Is it a bit of a novelty? Yeah, but I shoot it, and I've owned this for a long time, and it delights me. Russia has used the Makarov PMM. The airborne come to mind. They've used them from time to time. And it's one of the few high-capacity guns chambered for 9x18. The other one coming to mind is the VZ82, and I think Fort in Ukraine has done some higher-cap modern guns in 9x18. Fox and I were talking. I'm not sure if it's in this upcoming talking part, but it would actually be neat to get a modern polymer-type gun with a more ergonomic grip in 9x18 to shoot it, maybe with kind of modern recoil system. Because I really like the cartridge. I know, Jerry and others don't, but different strokes, right, guys? Because I think for close range defense and a simple, dependable gun, easy to field strip, easy to use, dead nuts reliable, especially with a hollow point, it's pretty good. But for the 1940s when it was developed, it fit a role, and it fit it very, very well. So yeah, we got a little bit rained out there, but we went and ate a burger, and we sat down in Fox's man cave. We're going to hear his thoughts, and we're going to discuss some things. However, we had a little bit of a microphone issue. And it wasn't the mics, it wasn't Sennheiser's fault. It was my fault. The volume was accidentally pressed to the low position. And at first I thought that there was no sound at all. Good news is there was sound, it was just very quiet. So handed it over to J-Ro. He cleaned it up as best he could without, going overboard. So that you're going to get some hiss and everything. I apologize in advance for it. But you should still be able to hear us talk just fine. And frankly, I figure if you've stayed in the video this long, you get it. I do my best for sound, but, it happened. We're salvaging it. And the discussion's there. And at least all the range footage and all that came out just fine. So with that, let's go back to Fox's little man cave area there, as he calls it, and see, is he a Mac fan, or was it a fail for him? Alrighty, so we're back here. We had a fun little Makarov day. And now the real question, like we started off, we've had kind of your hot takes there, but now we've had a day to think about it. And yeah, I like the Makarov, obviously. Am I saying they're the bestest guns ever? No, they're just fun. And I was lucky. When I started collecting, you could pick up really nice examples for $100 or less, and they were everywhere. I kind of got into them because they were what I could afford on a poor college student's budget. But I don't regret it. I don't sell them because they're kind of like a Mosin. I have a lot of fun with them. And you don't like Mosins.
No.
And J-Ro doesn't like Makarovs. Interestingly, J-Ro likes Mosins. Where do you fall?
I'll be honest, at the $100 mark, and just to have something different, it's enjoyable. I just don't really like these guns. They're just not very comfortable. And even just making the Canic video, that was a gun that I could shoot 500 rounds through and not feel my hand hurting. And not saying that's a lot of the reason I don't like this. It just doesn't fit me. It's not a, I don't know, it's not a modern day gun that's comfortable for me to shoot. And I know that.
These were adopted in 1949.
Exactly.
So
but
they're that.
At the price point these were kind of intended to be, and what it is, I think it's an awesome gun.
Man, they were intended to be free. Communism, work free spirit.
Right.
So
it was accurate. This one was.
You did like the grip more. Ironically, this was the one you released it because it has the fixed sides.
Well, and I like that one because it's just sexy looking. It's got like this AK look. I love those Bakelite grips. It's just an old school sexy looking gun. Did I enjoy shooting it? Not really. No.
I would agree. I think the high cap is for me the most comfortable to shoot.
Yeah, it fit my hand better.
Because these are all direct blowback on non. Also, I don't have my safety.
I did that to you earlier.
There's going to be some snap. For one thing, it's a really stiff spring. It's an all-steel gun. And you're shooting a relatively potent little cartridge.
Yeah, it is.
But these weren't meant for daily shooting or competition shooting.
No, it was a last effort.
Yeah, these are relatively light for the day and time, relatively small. And what was kind of good about that was the ability to carry cocked and locked back then. One thing, you're safe. Even with the safety off, you've got a heavy pull, but smooth.
Oh yeah.
This was meant to be carried as like a CCW, CHL would be today.
Right.
Ready to go, easy to pull out, not
reliable.
taking up a lot of space. Oh, bulletproof a lot. There's only 26 parts in a Makarov.
Isn't that crazy? 26 parts.
And most of them are steel, like 25.
It's not a heavy gun either. It's not very heavy. And I've seen people abuse the crap out of these. I had a friend once that threw one out of a car going 65 miles an hour down the interstate. And aside from breaking the grip, I mean, honestly, at its price point, it was. I mean, that's hot point.
That's why they were fun.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't matter if you dropped it or tore it up. I mean,
we even knew then, though. Look, we're getting a solid gun. No one thought that these are high quality, like HK. Like, I don't know how. No one thought that they were highly refined guns. They were, brute force. It was a good hammer.
Yeah,
it was just a well-made, like a cold steel hammer.
That's a good way to.
Like sometimes you want a really fancy knife that does a lot of things. Sometimes you just want a good, solid, I can't break this blunt force knife. And that's what a Makarov is.
Well, that kind of goes back to like, I can't say I don't like this gun for that exact reason. It's reliable. It's obviously Mosin's I specifically do not like for multiple reasons. I can't give you really a reason that I'm like, no, I'm good. But when I say I don't like it, it doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I like the gun, but it's not something I want to shoot again tonight or tomorrow. I got what I needed out of it, but what Misha is saying is how reliable it is and the fact that you can beat the hell out of it. What's not to like about it?
Well, and even like me, how often do you see me shooting a Makarov? Maybe I bring a handful out. The nice thing is they're small enough. Usually when I do bring a Makarov out, I bring 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And I shoot it and go, that was fun. And then I don't bring it out for about another year. Mm-hmm. Mostly because when these were coming in and I couldn't afford many guns, I didn't have much of a choice. If I wanted to shoot a handgun, it was I got my fill back in the day.
You've got a good hit. You've got a long history with it.
Yeah, but I still like to kind of go back to reminisce because I know it's going to work. Mm-hmm. And I don't really worry about it.
No.
Like, there's nothing I have to do. The ammo's available. And yeah, it's a bit of an odd round, but I still think it's easier to find than 380.
Yeah, and 5.7.
Yeah, it's a little different deal. Yeah, there's like some of these, especially the commercial ones, they didn't make them either 380 or 9x18. Mm-hmm. For one, 9x18's got a little more force, and for another, it's actually slightly cheaper than 380. 380's always been kind of expensive for what it is.
Yeah, I have that one.
I never. That's my deal. You and Justin, my deal is my maybe somewhat irrational disdain 380. Mm-hmm. Not the guns themselves. I don't like the cartridge. That's my deal, and you'll probably never convince me to love 380.
I don't think I love 380. It's just if it's a little bit smaller and I can pocket carry it. Obviously, I want the 9mm over the 380.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody's like, oh, I'll take that 380. That's what I want over my.
It's days kind of. It's kind of like the 40 Smith and Wesson. The
it's
days kind of over.
Yeah, it's not upgrading.
I wonder what like a modern polymer Makarov would be like.
I'd be willing to try it, but this is a snippy gun, and
but maybe if we had more ergonomic grips, you could really get more of a comfy grip.
Well, I think that's the whole reason about this gun in my hand is I can't get a comfortable grip. I'm trying to shoot it like a modern day shooter.
That's why I think the high cap. I think we got it down here.
Yeah,
the
high cap fit my hand a little
more
better.
Comfy. Yeah.
The high cap definitely fit my hand a lot.
Like, because it's not much. You'd think those have the same grips, but this one's just slightly wider.
Yeah.
And for some reason, whereas on the single stack, these kind of dig in because they're spread out a little more. They don't dig in as much on.
Yeah, these are a lot. The high cap's a lot more comfortable.
It's not a big difference. It's not that much fatter, but
I like the high cap better. But this one here shot a lot better for me.
Yeah, for you.
I don't know why, but the high cap just feeling in my hand.
You shot the high cap pretty well too.
Yeah, once I got it, did take me a little bit to get warmed up to these guns, but I mean, not that I can't handle some punch, but it was a little more punchier than your average handgun. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a sharp grip. It's a sharp where your thumb rests on the.
Sometimes it's just not as sharp on the high cap.
Yeah, it's rounded off a little bit. Mm-hmm. But overall, it was a cool experience. I got to say, I shot 3 different really badass.
And that's just
Makarovs.
it. Because we shoot a gun, because we own a gun, doesn't necessarily mean we're saying this is the best thing.
Right.
Sometimes it's just connecting with history. I mean, nothing else kind of makes you think of like Red Dawn. It's kind of cool to have the enemy's pistol because when I was a kid in the 80s, you could not get these. Like they did not exist. Russian type guns did not start showing up here until about 1992.
Wow.
So part of it was just the can't have it aspect.
Yeah.
And they were cheap. It's like, hey, here's something we never could have, and it's inexpensive. Because before, about the only Makarovs in the U.S., there were a handful of Chinese, and there were some Vietnam bringbacks, which were oodles expensive, like $1,500 then, with paperwork. But it was really cool just to get them.
I feel like a good way for me to summarize this gun is it seems like the AK pistol.
It is. I think it's very much same era, same adoption, virtually the same factory, same city at any rate. So yeah, they were adopted as a piece, as part of a new kind of doctrine. And in some ways, both were ahead of their times. Russia saw that the pistol is not really a frontline combat gun; it's a defense gun.
But you need it.
And in conjunction with an AK.
Yeah.
An AK is a new thing, but yeah, they just, whereas a lot of countries are still trying to have these big, bulky, last war handguns that were really not necessarily needed in the modern battle. And you got to remember too, this was the era when mechanized, like APC type things were coming into vogue.
Right.
Like Russia was ahead of the curve with its BMPs, and when you're in a tight vehicle crammed up with like 18 other dudes who haven't showered, having each other's handguns poking each other and all that crap. And what I really like too is a lot of militaries, the handgun was a badge of office. And in Russia too, usually the officers and drivers had them. But it was a practical gun too. Whereas so many handguns and militaries have used over the years have just not really had the durability.
Well, and if you think about it, you said Russia was ahead of its time. If you look at a modern day soldier now, you have a sidearm, which would be your pistol, and then your main weapon, which at that time would have been AK.
And the U.S. was pretty good too. Like the 1911 was an actual combat pistol.
Right.
But a lot of nations were a lot more lackadaisical about the handgun. Russia and the U.S. just took it a lot more. Heck, the Brits didn't retire revolvers until 1957.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of nations just didn't put priority to a handgun.
Right.
Russia did. No, it seemed like a fun gun. And I'd called you up and said, hey, you want to shoot Makarov? You said you never really handled one. So I had found a couple of boxes knocking about of ammo. Why not?
It was a cool experience.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
They're fun. Of course, they're not $100 anymore. I think the last price I've seen on like Bulgarian imports, and they are in nice condition, but they're going for about $450 now.
Yeah.
Which, in this day and age, is still cheaper than just about any other steel frame gun of good quality.
Especially an import.
Yep. So, it is what it is. Yeah. And again, back in the 90s, $100 isn't what it is today. That's more like maybe $250, $300 in today's money. So, still cheaper, but they were fun. I liked them. Yeah, that high capper there, I was tickled to death when I've had it for 20 some odd years. When I came into the store and they had a high cap, I'd always kind of just wanted one. I thought they were neat for my own purposes.
It's way ahead of its time.
Yeah, it's just they made it around 1990 to try to keep the design relevant. It sort of worked. The Airborne used them, a few others. It wasn't a big issue, but you're getting a couple more rounds, 10 or 12. They went to slightly updated grips. They had to, like I said earlier, put the adjustable sights on for U.S. reasons. But as we saw today, just because they had to, you were doing a lot better at the two adjustable sight guns.
Yes.
So even if it was a commercial change, it seemed to be
beneficial
for you.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little more snaggy, less compact, but at least you get something out. I just don't like changes made when there's no benefit, like 922R. That's just change for change's sake. If you're going to have to change it, try to at least give the customer something.
Very well said.
So yeah, not a whole lot new under the sun to say about Makarovs. For me, I've talked about them for years, but it's always fun to bring someone new in. We'll have to let nephew try it sometime.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
He's away at Fire Academy, folks, so nephew might not be on the channel for a little while, but don't worry, he's definitely not lost in the woods. Taken away by Sasquatch to be his new bride. And he said he was doing additional training too, which is great.
He's got his 8 weeks, and then he did an additional 4.
So cool, guys. Well, let us know what you think of Makarovs. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you own one? If so, what is it? They're just kind of fun, like surplus ones like this. Then they're done that. It probably wasn't, but in theory, 1983, it could have gone to Afghanistan.
Yeah, really. Pretty cool way to look at that.
As always, if you could, please like, share, subscribe. If you'd like to help support us as we roll into fall, check out Patreon. This is Misha.
This is Fox.
We'll catch you very soon.